Welcome to the Lemons and Pineapples podcast. I'm your host, Emma O'Brien, personal development coach, HeartMath practitioner, dog photographer, and entrepreneur. In this podcast, I share tools, strategies, and amazing guest interviews to help you improve your mindset and your well-being with a sprinkle of fun and probably some mention of dogs along the way. So without further ado, let's squeeze the day. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 8 of the podcast. My guest on today's episode is Michele Johnston. She is the powerhouse behind Fiercely Authentic Coaching, and we are going to be talking about the perfectionism trap that so many of us get caught up in. Raised with strict ideals, she married young and became a devoted mother of 4. And for years, she masked her struggles to fit society's perfect mold. But when her kids grew, she prioritized self-care. Pushing a truck full of kettlebells was her aha moment. I think we need to hear more about that. Revealing her incredible strength physically and mentally. Michele dove into fitness and embarked on a journey of self-discovery, self-love, adventure, and grace. And now, as a life and empowerment coach, she empowers fierce women to rediscover their authentic selves, fall in love with their quirks, and live life unapologetically. Welcome, Michele.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
This is going to be such a great conversation, and I'm really excited to dive in. Perfectionism affects many people, and I think it shows up in so many different ways for people, from the need to wait for the perfect time to launch a business, or trying to look a certain way, or waiting for the perfect partner to show up. I think the need to be perfect is a deep cause of unhappiness and procrastination for so many people. Yeah. I think it's one of the reasons that I think a lot of people end up coming to work with coaches, because if you're waiting for everything to be perfect all the time, nothing ever is, and nothing is right, and you are never ever happy. And I'm quite intrigued as to what this piece of being perfect looked like for you.
Yeah, I mean, you are so right. It comes from so many different places, and looking perfect is so different for everyone. Mm-hmm. For me, it was really how I grew up and what was instilled in me through my family setting and through religious setting was more so the situation for me. So for me, being perfect, I'm meaning like as a woman, like how am I supposed to show up as a woman for my family? How am I supposed to show up as a wife and as a mother for my family? That kind of being the perfect woman yeah. is what was showing up in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and interesting. And in your mind, what was the perfect woman supposed to be like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. So the perfect woman was basically Martha Stewart. Like I was supposed to be the crafting guru that make the amazing from scratch meals, have my house put together all of the time. My kids, nice and tidy and all smiles, and just this facade of leading like the perfect home life. Everything was with rainbows and butterflies, and that's the mask that I held outside of the home. Mm-hmm. And I desperately tried to make that a reality inside the home, and it wasn't working for me.
I think this is an interesting thing as well, is we want to be perfect in the eyes of other people. Mm-hmm. So it's a jolly good job that the people you were hoping to impress don't show up at my house. I tick none of those boxes. My poor fiance, I think, wishes he'd met somebody with more of a kind of wifely gene. But I think it's all about social conditioning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And the wild thing is like I would, whenever I was in a serious relationship, or, like when I really got into a serious relationship, like all of a sudden I like totally took on that role of wifey. Like I was started to do their laundry. Like I took pride in cooking good meals and all these. I saw it over and over in hindsight, saw it over and over in these showing up in these relationships. Like just automatically taking on these roles.
Mm.
But yeah, trying to keep up with, every other woman, every other family in the church. Oh my gosh. I was like watching the TLC programs on large families, because having a large family was like instilled like one of my goals in life, and how to manage that, like all the things. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting. But out of interest, how many of the other women in the community you were in, and these are women that you were obviously trying to put a bit of a front on for almost, how many of them do you think were also going through the same internal struggle as you?
So, it's so funny you should ask that, because I found as I came out of that community and stepped into my own being, I ended up seeing a few women like follow like the same footsteps.
Yep.
And so these women that I was like, oh, I thought you had your shit all together too. And they're like, and now they're divorced and tattooed and living their best life like I am.
Yeah. But isn't that amazing that it takes one person to sort of break ranks, and everyone else goes, oh, wow, I'm not alone.
Yeah. And I got a lot of backlash. I
Yes.
totally got a lot of backlash. I got a lot of people reaching out, like, are you okay? Maybe you shouldn't be posting that on social media, because people are going to think this. And I was like, well, let them think whatever they want, because I'm finally like stepping back into my own power.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. So we've talked about kind of breaking out of it, but what when you were in the perfect mold kind of mode, if you like, what was the catalyst that made you realize you were living the life you thought you should live, as opposed to the one you really wanted?
Well, really the pivotal moment for me, and I'm sure a lot of women out there can identify, is that Mother's Day was probably the worst holiday of the year for me. And I dreaded that day. And the reason being is because for me, it made it like kind of threw all my imperfections and shortcomings as a mother in my face. That's how I kind of took it. It was still the same day as any other day of the year. I was still cooking the meal, still doing the laundry, still breaking up the bickering. It was the same old day. And for me, I took it as like, I'm nobody special. I'm not worthy enough to, actually be held on a pedestal on this day. And it just brought all of my imperfections to the forefront. So a pivotal moment for me was about 15 years into my marriage and motherhood. At this time, I had 4 children, and I was sitting in a church listening to all these wonderful accolades for people's mothers on Mother's Day. And I was sitting in the pew and I was crying. And I was just like so distraught, so depressed, felt horrible. And as I continued processing through the coming days and came out of my depression about surrounding the day, I started getting angry. I started getting angry because of all the crap that I had been ingrained in me through my entire life about how I was supposed to be, how I should be. I started getting pissed off about that. And then after I got pissed off, then I started a phase of forgiveness, and not necessarily forgiveness for, towards the people that had taught me all these things. I forgave my parents because I knew that they were just doing the best they knew how to do. But I also went through a big phase of forgiveness of myself.
Yeah.
Of not knowing any better, doing what I just knew how to do, and trying to do it the best I could. So I forgave myself for not knowing any better. And then I moved on with determination to make change and find a better way and to find my happy. So that was really that pivotal moment was Mother's Day that just kind of like started the whole kind of processing and then moving me forward.
And how long did it take for you to start to make changes from that moment where you thought, okay, enough? How long did it take, and what were the changes you made?
Yeah, well, first I started taking in all the self-help, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm like, what year was that? 2015. So Facebook was out there. So I started looking for like mom groups,
Mm-hmm.
any kind of self-help. I started like YouTube was a big thing back then. So I started looking for inspirational women on YouTube. Anyone that had a story that I felt like I could identify with, that resonated with me, anyone that I thought might understand what I'm feeling. I was just grasping for straws. So I really dove into the self-help, and realized that I was at the bottom of the totem pole and that I never put myself first. That self-care piece was totally non-existent. At the time, I was pretty unhealthy. I was pre-diabetic and had chronic hypertension. And so my first step was to take control of my health.
Yeah.
And I was like, if there's chaos all around me, the very least I can do is control what's going in my mouth, what I'm eating, and take a little bit of time out to move, whatever that may be. And so I got into some fitness. And this is where the kettlebell story comes in. I had a couple of friends doing a fitness group, and I was like, okay, this looks like fun. So I got into it, and it was very like a primitive movement, like weights, and kind of, I started, being more of like heavy on the meats and proteins, that kind of eating, and doing this group. And one day we had a guest come, and she had loaded up her huge pickup truck full of kettlebells. And our instructor brought us out, and he's like, so this is what we're doing today. You're going to be pushing that truck through the parking lot. And I'm like, oh, hell no. Like, that's not happening. And lo freaking behold, I did it. Like, I got in, and the adrenaline rush, and I pushed that big pickup truck, through the lot. I have pictures to prove it. And honestly, it was in that moment I realized, like, holy shit, I'm so much stronger than I ever gave myself credit for.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that started the Michele badass revolution. Like, really.
I love that. The Michele badass revolution.
Yes. So, so the beginning stages for me was really taking back the things that I could control. And that for me was my fitness and nutrition.
Yes.
And then I just kept on with the self-help and the self-love, and looking for guidance and people that understood my process, like that I could kind of look up as mentors too.
Did you work with a coach or a mentor at the time when you were going through these changes, out of interest?
No, you know what? I didn't. And that's part of the reason why I do what I do now as an empowerment and transitional coach. And because I was doing everything on my own. I was looking for anything and everything. And if I had someone holding my hand or to bounce things off of, just to like talk to, because I couldn't talk to my husband. Like, he didn't get it.
No.
So I didn't talk to anyone. I was just looking for these, platform people to kind of become my friends.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is the beauty of coaching. And it's the one thing I found, because I came across a coach when I was really, really stuck with my photography business. And I knew I needed to change something, but I had no idea what. And I think we're all very capable of making changes. It's just how long you want it to take. And I think for you, it sounds like it really was a kind of journey of self-discovery along the way. Yeah. So would you have changed any of it?
Well, so you know what? I'm very much like you. I'm like figure my shit out on my own. And if I need help, I'll reach out. And
Yeah.
that's how I am in like all aspects of my life. Like
Okay.
I can figure it out. I
Yeah.
got this. I got this. And then when I've tried all avenues and it doesn't work, then I start reaching out.
Okay.
So I do think the journey was just right. And I do so believe in like the universe has its perfect timing of things, and things come into your life as they're aligned and meant to be. So I don't think I would have changed anything. Yeah, I wouldn't have changed anything. I wish that like I had maybe been more open to my parents or my husband about what I was going through rather than try and process all the emotions on my own.
Yeah.
But, outside of that, I did a lot of journaling.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful tool. But it sounds to me from what we've discussed that it might not have been possible or very easy to be open to your husband and parents when effectively you would have been saying to them, I hate to inform you, but I'm not who you think I am. It's been a pretense.
You're spot on.
It's been a pretense for so long, and I'm about to morph into my proper self, and you may or may not like it. So
yeah.
I guess
you were spot on there.
And I'm curious because I believe you are not married to the same husband anymore.
Nope. We divorced.
Yeah.
So my fitness journey continued on, and I continued stepping into this strength and this power that I had discovered. And I am also one of those ladies that goes like 0 to 100 and likes to set like the lofty goals and just to like test my endurance and see if I can do it. And so let's see, about 2 years into my fitness, and I wasn't really getting the results that I wanted. I was trying everything. And I had a girlfriend who had been doing fitness competitions, and she reached out and she's like, hey, Michele, I'm thinking of becoming a fitness competition coach. Would you be on board to be one of my beta clients? I'm like, well, why the hell not? Because I've tried everything. Well, in the period of 6 months, I dropped 25 pounds and was on a freaking stage rocking the sparkly bikini and the 5-inch hooker heels.
Nice.
And yeah. And I was like, it was another one of those like badass moments, right? And I kept it secret, of course, because I couldn't share, because anyone in my community would be like, wow, what are you doing? I didn't share with my parents. The only person that knew was my husband at the time. And I went to a different state to compete too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I went, yeah. So I got on social media and I'm like, so this happened. And all of a sudden I started like a lot of my girlfriends from the church and just random people from social media they were paying me attention, and you're so inspiring. How did you do that? Oh my God, blah, blah, blah. I got home, and the next day my husband and I had a conversation. He's like, we need to talk. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, I think what you did was amazing, but I need to know, as your husband, where do I stand? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, well, now you're getting attention from all these other people. Like, you've totally transformed your body. Like, and I was like, I'm the same Michele on the inside as before. My shell has just changed. And really, from that point on, things went into a downward spiral in our marriage.
Yeah.
And his insecurities really came up.
Yeah.
My marriage became very controlling, and ultimately it became very psychological and emotionally abusive. And as a result of this transformation, not only physically, but stepping back into my true self and my authenticity and who Michele was, even though I felt I was the same, my vibration was so much different.
Yeah.
So it changed everything in my marriage.
Yeah, and I think this is quite often the case for when people go on a big personal development journey, or suddenly decide they're going off on a different tangent within a marriage. Either the other person, invariably, unless you're really lucky, I don't think two people grow kind of in parallel at the same time. I think that would be the absolute perfect relationship. But I think if you're lucky, you grow a bit, and then the other person kind of catches up, and it evolves over time. But I think sometimes by this, you underwent a huge transformation. So for him, I imagine, comparing the person you became to the person he married, it was, I'm sure, like chalk and cheese.
Yeah, absolutely. When he met me, I was in a little rebellious stage, and that was like the first tasting that I had of like who I was. And so I kept telling him, like, remember when you met Michelle, like 20-year-old Michelle? Like, it's the same. She's been reawakened.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it's, as I say, we all evolve in life, and I think it's true of friendships, all sorts of things. You either kind of evolve and grow together, or you kind of move on and you evolve past people almost, I think. And that's difficult, but it sounds like it was in line with your authenticity, with where you were going.
No, I totally agree. I was like, outside of like the kind of nasty part of the marriage, I just simply outgrew him.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we ended up finalizing our divorce in 2018. And, I really embraced this role of inspiring other women and wanting to help other women. And, there's a lot of mindset work and, of course, a lot of healing from the marriage. And it was almost like I'd come into this really great place, and then all the nasty of the marriage and the divorce, I had to work through a lot of mindset issues because a lot of that old stuff came back up.
Yeah, I'm sure. So if I was to ask you, what, in your view, are the keys to living an authentic life, what would they be?
Oh, one of the biggest things is to give yourself grace, to understand that no one's perfect. You're not perfect. In everyone else's eyes, I should preface that. In everyone else's eyes, you may not be perfect, but you were created exactly the way that you were meant to be. Perfectly imperfect, I always say.
Yeah.
So, and embrace those unique, crazy imperfections that make you you, because that's what people love, and that's what people identify with and resonate with, is your quirky things, being outside of the box, not fitting the mold.
Yeah.
So give yourself grace, forgive yourself for any old ideas, old narratives that you had, and let them go. Process them, forgive, let them go. Really make a point daily to, at the end of the day, whatever. For me, it's in the shower. That's the only place I can think clearly, to reflect on the day. Find something that you have gratitude for. Find a moment that brought you some happiness, a conversation, an interaction, something that filled your soul a little that day. Every day, finding that place of gratitude is so important to keep that positive mindset. And knowing that you have a voice and it's important and people want to hear it, stepping into that feminine power, like unapologetically. Like, I think so many women just don't even realize like how amazing and strong and beautiful they are. So the more you can embrace your crazy, your hot mess, all that you are, and step into that and be like, accept me or don't, like, the better, the happier you'll be able to move on in life.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing advice. I love the piece you shared about finding gratitude in And I think that's especially useful, I think, when you're going through slightly difficult patches in life, when it can become overwhelming. I mean, I'm sure for you, I know when I got divorced, it was pretty awful. And I've had relationships that have failed, and it's been a very difficult time. And I think if you are able to reflect and say, all right, today was a bit of a shitty day, but I'm really grateful for the friends that came round and had a glass of wine with me, or I'm really grateful for the guy in the grocery store who gave me a smile and helped me pack my bag. And I think sometimes it's just the tiny things. You start to retrain yourself to look for where are the little moments of sparkle in amongst life that can be quite hard. And I think that's a really wonderful thing. And I think there is that piece is when you show up as your authentic self, you know, like you say, with not warts and all, maybe warts and all, but, you know, you show up as your authentic self with your hair that's not quite perfect or what have you. You give other people permission to do the same. You give other people permission to go, all right, she can do it. It's actually okay for me to do it too. And that's one thing I've learned over time with, I mean, like the podcast, for instance. If I waited until I thought I was perfect at podcasting, I wouldn't have a podcast ever. And you have to just go, do you know what? I'm going to put it out there. Not everyone's going to like it. That's okay. Some people will, it'll resonate. And those are my people. And that is actually all that matters, to be quite honest.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, I feel like I have to have a foundation before I like do anything. But that's a piece I've been working on with myself as well. Like just taking the leap. If it feels aligned, just do it.
Just do it, and you'll figure it out along the way. And I think when you're on the right path, things show up. People show up to help you. Doors kind of open. And I think, you know, it's that I've got a great book called Taxi Driver Wisdom, and there's a quote in there. It was a collection of quotes people have had from New York taxi drivers, and one of them was leap and the net will appear. And you know, I think that's just such a wonderful piece of advice, but you've got to be brave enough to leap.
Absolutely.
Michele, this has been a really wonderful conversation. Thank you for being here today. For anybody listening, where can they find you and connect with you online?
Yeah, so the best place to connect with me would be on Instagram. My handle is Fiercely Authentic Coaching. And yeah, just drop into my DMs. I'm happy to chat, happy to share, happy to support any way that I can. And thank you, Emma, so much for having me today. I've really appreciated the opportunity to share and chat with you.
Thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been lovely to connect with you. I will pop your Instagram handle in the show notes. So for anybody who is driving or what have you, when listening to this, you can have a look in the show notes, and I'll have a link for you to connect up with Michele. All right. Thanks for listening, folks. Thanks, Michele, for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed it, please share with your friends, and be sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review, especially if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. To find out more about my one-on-one coaching, please visit my website, which is emmaobriencoach.com. And remember, folks, when life gives you lemons, you can always choose another fruit. See you next time.